Welcome to Worse Than You with Mo Fry Pasick. I'm Mo, and every week I am asking today's funniest artists how they got their acts together. This show isn't about their best or most famous work, it's about the work that means the most to them, their creative process, and why they make their art. You guys have been following along because I spent all summer performing my stage play Worse Than You at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. And I'm just starting to process how that affected myself, my art, my work, and figure out what comes next. So for the rest of the season, I'm calling on Fringe headliners and stars who know a thing or two about life after the festival. When do we put the pen down, and when do we run with the momentum? Is a creation ever really complete? And are we ever really lights down on the stage? Dramatic. So on today's show, we have a very special Fringe headliner and personal family member joining us. This week, our guest is comedian, actress, and writer. You know her from shows like Search Party, Los Spookies, films like Problemista, and podcasts like Senior Superlatives. She performed her hour-long show, Exquisite Lies, at the 2023 Edinburgh Fringe Festival to incredible reviews. Please welcome to the pod, my dearest baby, Greta Titelman.
Oh, thanks, Mo. What an honor to be here.
I'm very happy for you to be here.
And to talk about the Fringe, no less.
Talk about the Fringe, but also talk about, I think the Fringe itself, we're getting into it, but the Fringe itself is less so like an accolade and more so something creatively with such repetition. You know, we're constantly performing. So then is that different than Fringe? And all these different things. But we open with the Too Long Didn't Read. So could you give us a sort of summary of what your Fringe show was?
Sure. My Fringe show. I think I called it intimate stories about me investigating myself. I mean, kind of as all Fringe shows are in many ways. Kind of checks the box of girl on stage bearing her soul, and this is her trauma.
Love's crazy.
You know? So, no, it was about me kind of under the guise of me figuring out why I am the way I am, who I am, and investigating these stories, these moments in my life up into a point that kind of can inform me in my journey of self-discovery. Does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense. And what I found interesting about kind of the packaging of that is that you almost have to perform a lack of self-awareness or understanding of self, because I know you, and even when you were young, you were really self-aware and did know yourself really well.
Yeah. I mean, I think that something that some reviewers, well, I'm sure we'll get into that.
Wait.
I read one really good one, and then I read one bad one.
Okay.
And after I read the one bad one, it sent me so hard that I was like, oh, I actually can't read these. I can't handle this.
Good or bad.
You know? Yeah, I can't handle the good or bad, because when I get the good ones, then I think to myself, oh, why am I getting the bad ones? You know what I mean? And it's crazy and would just make me mad. But in the bad one that I did read, and I think in the ones that were tepid with me that I know from me, yelling at the sweet, sweet women who were my publicists for the Fringe.
Yeah.
People were having a really tough time differentiating whether or not that was who I really was. They didn't know that the person that I was playing on stage is a character.
Yeah.
Is someone that is deranged, is someone that does not have self-awareness, is someone that is making the worst possible choices at every single turn. So, I will say stylistically, I think we're used to that a lot more in the US. I think we're used to a lot of people playing a caricature of themselves or a version of themselves on stage.
But at the same time, we're obsessed with who they are in their daily life.
Totally.
Because my show is very different, right? And I think you and I, while we are fabulous in our lives, we do insane things or have insane thoughts or experiences, we are not insane, and we are very aware, so much so that we can distill it to a performance that might help people. And I don't know, does that affect the way you write? Does that piss you off? Does that make you want to be more clear or bigger a character to be separate from Greta. Like, you know?
I think like with that show, my whole thing was just like, it would just make me want to double down.
Yeah.
And like, it would make me just want to go harder and harder and harder.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing of me being like unlikable.
Are people saying that?
This one woman wrote a review.
She's projecting.
And she was just like, she's so unlikable. If there's one thing I know for sure, it haunts me to this day, which is why I can still recite it. She's like, if there's one thing I know for sure, Titelman won't be leaving Fringe with any new friends. It's like, yeah, bitch, if you think that's really who I am as a person, like, you know.
But also, like, even if that person existed, who are you to say other people wouldn't like that?
But also, when you realize that, like, low-key, a lot of people can be reviewers for the Fringe.
That was,
okay.
Can I tell you, anybody with a WordPress, and I'm not even talking Substack.
Correct.
I'm talking WordPress.
Correct.
Opened in 2009.
So you have to remember these things, and it really is such a bubble. Like, you're in it, you are in this vortex. You feel like you have been, or at least I felt, and I'm curious how you felt, I felt like I had heard, as you did too, going into it, you had all these people. You had me, you had Catherine, you had, you know, a billion people telling you this is kind of how you're going to feel. It's so great.
Yeah.
All of these little anecdotes. And they're so, in your mind, you're like, yeah, no, I probably won't feel that way. Like, I'm like a really like realized person, confident performer, blah, 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 blah. But there is something intrinsic in that experience that breaks you to some capacity. And whether it's the mania of doing the same show every single night I think that's a huge part of it, because you do just kind of start to feel.
I kept saying it was Love Island time, where it's like a day is a week.
Yeah, and it's also like, it is Groundhog's Day.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah,
and you're also living in this town that looks fake.
It really does.
And it's littered with posters of
your
this
own
festival,
face.
of your face, of your friends'
Yeah.
faces. And then the stars and all that shit and the reviews and all this shit. And it just gets so kooky that at a certain point you are really like, I have stepped through a vortex into a different time-space continuum.
Okay.
And this is insane.
I didn't really expect to get reviews because I'm not going there to do stand-up. And I think stand-up shows or comedy shows are kind of where the Fringe is its sweet spot. And so if you're doing theater, unless you're doing like a huge, intense company thing, I don't know if there's the same buzz around it, despite having an incredible team who managed to get me reviewers in-house and interviews. But also, one, you need a team for that, because no matter how good you are, you ain't getting that. And so there's all these components that I think are smoke and mirrors, where you think like, if I'm just good enough, I'll get, and it's like, well, no. And that doesn't mean you're not good enough. That just means maybe this isn't the time or place for whatever you want this art to be consumed by. So my thing was like, I don't give a shit. Like, whoever comes, thank God. If they like it, great. And thankfully I didn't have any sort of like scathing judgments, like that I was unlikable as a person. I have had people come up and project pretty hard about what they think the play's about. And I don't take it personally because of the pressure of Fringe. Fringe was so much, meaning like I had, 3 laptops worth no storage that I had to, lug every day a mile. And then I had, to redo the Q labs myself, resew my costume like daily because it kept breaking. I had to, make sure the new techs were trained. I had to like just do the pod, a million things where if I associate it myself with the show, and Matt Gehring, who stepped in to help us with stuff on the ground, was like, hey, you are not worse than you. You are not the show. And so the second I made it like a gig that I was showing up to, like it made it really easy to not care about anything in that sort of way. Mm-hmm. But it was interesting because there was like, I think one review was like, it's a person who's, desperate to be told they're pretty. And it was like, wait, where is that in the play? Like you've seen it. And it'll be like someone who is just on the verge of killing themselves at all times. I was like, whoa, where is that?
No, the shit that people say is so
Someone said it was
crazy.
like on the verge of killing themselves at all times. I looked and I was like, and then they're like, well, it's this incredible play about narcissism. And I was like, oh, okay. And you just have to go, you know what? Whatever associations in your life, whatever people in your life trigger you or make you feel that way, I hope you can get to the end of the show and feel like maybe it's about something more. But if not, and you also felt changed by it, great, it's about a narcissist and that is I.
I also think we are so not used to reviewers in our culture.
Well, you and
what
I
we
coming from
do.
stand-up, the review is like, did you do Caroline's? Did you do the show? Not your actual content.
Right. I mean, no one is going to Ali Wong's show at Madison Square Garden and then writing a review of it in the New York Times. No one's doing that.
No one's saying her jokes through line didn't connect perfectly.
Like, they'll review specials, obviously. They'll review the work once it's out. But on the flip side, like, you know, it is different when you do a play in the States. You will get reviewed for a play here. But it's like people are reviewing every comedy show in the UK. They send reviewers to.
That's so weird.
I know. It is really interesting. And it's just like, I think something that the Fringe taught me was like, I actually just can't give a fuck as to what these people say, because at the end of the day, like, what am I going to do when I'm at the Fringe? I'm going to go home and I'm going to rewrite my whole entire hour that I've been working tirelessly on for
one
years.
Scottish
Like,
friend.
no, honey, I'm not doing that. So this is the show. And then, like, maybe I'll come back again. And if I come back again, maybe you'll like that show, you know?
Well, to that point of like process, because in-house we talk about clay on the mound. And you know me like the back of my hand. And you've seen me like kind of take things literally or not understand process. And what's nice about being friends with someone for years is I've seen your process quite literally in action as far as like writing and rewriting goes. And I think you're someone who is at their core, despite being an artist, despite being a photographer, despite being an actress, you are a stand-up and you're good at it. Like, and you are, I really feel like you know how to get on a stage like a pro. And I love watching you change a joke the second you finished off stage because you're watching it live with the audience. And I think after being out in this world, that's a very unique quality that I don't think a lot of stand-ups even have.
Thanks, Mo.
Yeah, babe, of course.
You know, it's been a year since the traumatic event of Fringe.
Since you left with no friends.
Yeah, since I made no friends at Fringe.
Literally the most likable person I know, has more friends than anyone I know.
No.
But you do. So
that was such a crazy thing to say. But to your intro of being like, when do we put the pen down? When do we decide to stop? Like, when do we know if the work is complete? Like, you know, I don't think we ever know when the work is complete, but I think something spiritually in me shifted after the Fringe as it related to this show, which I think is different for you than worse than you, because I think for me, I was supposed to go to Fringe in 2020 with this show.
Oh, yeah.
And then...
Remember, because we were also going to do a college show when you were prepping for it.
Yes. And then that was a good check.
Yeah, I know.
Damn.
It was sad.
And
you and I both had like 6 gigs and 2 weddings ready to go in 20. Okay.
Anyway, so I was supposed to do it in 2020.
Yeah.
And then obviously, you know, imagine having a show that you were supposed to take in 2020 and not doing it until 2023. How much work I had done on it between 2020 and 2023. That's a really long time.
Yeah.
So by the time it came for me to do the show, I think I was already at the end of my interest in wanting to continue to do the show.
Really?
Yes, because I think I was like excited to do it at Fringe. You know, nothing is more maddening than like not having an outlet for something you've worked so long on.
Horrible.
You know, so for me, I was like, great, like this is an outlet for this. And I did it at Fringe, and I really felt so satiated by the experience. But my last time doing the show, I ended up going to London at the end of May, and I did that show 5 times in London, and that was really the end. But it was like I actually needed to do it those last 5 times.
To know.
For me to be like, oh, I'm actually like, I never want to say these words ever again.
Wait, okay, so you said spiritually. Does that mean that you felt like you understood what you were trying to work through as a comic in that joke, or like you were just wanting something different? Like, what was that spiritual kick?
It just was not fulfilling my spirit.
That's great.
I was not like locked in.
Yeah. You weren't inspired by it.
No, I felt like it was representing an old version of myself, not the version of myself that I am now, not my mind as it is now.
That's hard when you have to keep doing it and you feel it is representing an older self.
I mean, but unfortunately, I feel like that's so many things, right? Like we start noodling and we start incubating and we start downloading things in our mind, and then we mold them, and then they crystallize, and then we perform them. And then by the time we've reached a point of performance where we're like, whoa, I've really fucking nailed it. Generally speaking, you're like, you know, you personally have moved on.
Yeah.
But I think it's important, at least for me, because I am really like a no stone left unturned. I really need to wear things out until the very last drop, which is a quality that is both bad and good. But I think for me, I like really fucking wore that show out till the very end.
Yeah. But I think you kind of have to do that, because I think with Worse Than You Now, after doing it that many times, it does feel like it's the difference between like having one kid and having three, where it's the first kid, you're like making sure their head's soft and making sure the diapers are the right brand. And the third kid, you're like, what the fuck ever? Like, and I think I've spiritually gotten to the point of third kid where I'm like, yeah, I'll put it up. What do you want? Like, yeah, throw it up somewhere. Whereas before it was like, make sure the theater's the right space, so it's the right projector and it's the right. And I think I know when I've really relinquished that control is when I'm like needing to work on something else, because I'm not as precious with it, which maybe
I also think that just the concept of Fringe would wear anyone down.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
So it's like there is a feeling of almost after the first week, you really have like a rude awakening of being like, oh, I actually can't be precious about this because nothing is going to go the way that I want it to go statistically for every single show. So therefore, I can't be precious about it. I need to be able to just like roll along, as annoying as that is.
But it's not annoying. I think if there is more accessible, less expensive versions of Fringe for every artist, right, who then in 1 month has to experience on the day of their show, right, on the day something is going to be consumed, that, you know, their boyfriend doesn't call, their partner doesn't pick up, a family emergency. All those things happen in the course of that month because all those things happen in life. And you are quite quickly better understanding, because of experience, why you're doing what you're doing and to what end and why, or for who. And so I do wish people not just had the reps to be like, yeah, it's good to get on stage. Which also, can I tell you what I had a revelation the other day? I think it's in Tootsie in the opening. She gets locked in the bathroom, the blonde, and she's like, you know, I was really scared at first, but then I figured, you know, one time if I'm acting, I can use this first scene. You know, I can say like, I know what it feels like to be that. And I felt like I spoke to a lot of people who are kind of contriving experiences, and they're like, it'll be good to have a hard time because on set, you never know how hard things can be. And I'm going, why are you contriving that? Like, why are you creating something to be difficult?
Yeah.
And I think as stand-ups, you're just doing reps and you're on stage so much, you don't even think about that because you don't realize actors aren't getting reps.
Right.
You need reps.
Right.
Writers aren't getting reps. You need reps.
Yes.
It's what any athlete does. It's what any artist does, any painter.
Well, there's no space in theater really, acting at large, to just like get quote unquote reps that isn't like improv or something like that,
Which
you know,
we love.
or like a class or like something of the sort, because there's nothing. It's not the same as getting immediate feedback in front of a live audience.
It's not the same.
The exchange between like actor and participant is something that I do agree with you. Like, it's invaluable.
It's invaluable, and you won't know if you're saying what you're trying to say if there's nothing for it to bounce off of.
I mean, I would give The Fringe 10 out of 10 in terms of I left that experience feeling like the fucking Terminator.
Yeah.
Like, I left that experience being like, I've elevated 1,000 degrees in my confidence as a performer and my ability as a performer. Because guess what, honey? I can perform in front of a room of thousands, or I can perform in a room of 3.
Oh, really? Because it was for 1 for me.
Wow.
Yeah, it's intimate.
I think my smallest crowd was like, I think I had 12 one night.
That's great.
But my room was large.
You were at Pleasance. Oh, which room were you?
I was in Pleasance upstairs.
That's huge.
My room was like, I think just shy of 100.
Yeah.
So like.
Oh, it's worse. It just feels so much bigger in that moment.
But actually, as you posted about, some of my most fun shows were the smaller crowds. Because when you have the smaller crowds, you really kick into like, well, I have nothing to fucking lose here.
Nothing to lose, friend.
And like, there would be moments where I would just put the microphone down and I'd be like, it's like I'm holding you guys hostage. Like, it's truly like, there were some nights, there were like two nights where the vibe was very, we are at my parents' dinner party. I am 7 years old.
And also, you kill at that.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like, I am 7 years old and I am forcing my parents' friends to watch me dance. Like, that was the exchange that was happening.
100%.
Where like, they had to sit there and everyone's so polite.
Can I say most polite audiences?
Oh my God. Everyone's so polite, so sweet. But it's a lot of people afterward that are like, are you okay, darling? It's like, I'm okay. You asking me if I'm okay is making me not
crazy.
okay.
Yeah. It is the tenderest. Like, let me tell you, when you're in a room full of 60-year-old Scottish couples,
sure,
and it's dead silent. You've seen my opening. I literally have a Hitachi vibrator.
Yeah.
And I'm miming masturbating to Chris Evans in the transformation from Steve Rogers to Captain America. And you think while you're doing that, am I okay?
No. No, you're absolutely, you leave your body and you look down at yourself in this situation and you're like, what decisions have I made that have led up to this point?
Because if no one's laughing, I'm just someone in a crisis.
Correct.
In front of a crowd.
In a little black box
saying,
theater.
Look at me masturbate. Isn't this funny?
I know. It's crazy. Also, like, references, I learned very quickly. I was like, oh, none of you guys know what I'm talking about. I had a joke about a Palm Pilot in my show.
Oh, that's a good one.
These are the, like, fun learning parts of the Fringe where, like, no one was fucking laughing.
Never.
And Matt Rogers was at my show.
What did he say?
No one was laughing at that part. And Matt was like, I think you need to just explain to them what a Palm Pilot is. Mm-hmm. He was like, I think you need to pause the music and explain to them what the Palm Pilot is. And then in my mind, I'm like, oh, great, another fucking cue. Yeah. I'm going to have to.
And that cue lab. Oh my God, I have to end the cue into this.
But once I did that, it actually became like so funny. And it became such a good point of the show because then it was like, oh my God, then I found out that at one of my shows, I had like a 12-year-old in my crowd, even though my show was specifically 16 plus.
What? Why were they there?
They were there with their mom.
Sure. Okay. Wow.
I was like, I can't.
See, but when you acknowledge the thing there, I think that helps because a lot of times people say, like, you just do your thing and it doesn't matter if it doesn't resonate. But I keep talking about context matters. So if I understand the context of something, I can laugh. If I know what a Palm Pilot is, I can laugh with you. Instead of trying to politely go, here, is this where I should laugh? And if an audience is asking where they should, they're not enjoying themselves.
No. Okay, I correct my statement. He was not exactly 12. He was slightly older. He might have been 15.
No, he's listening and pissed. He's hit. His mom is listening.
The thing
She's
is,
been tracking you since that day.
I was like screaming in his face. I was like, and what year were you born? And he looked at me and he was like 2007. And I was like,
are you joking?
Yeah, no.
Oh my God. I
was like,
I
said to him, I was like, I was getting fucked
fingered
up
in the back of a car.
I was getting fucked up the ass in 2007.
Yeah, and then did he smile or did he go, is she okay?
No, he was absolutely terrified.
Yeah, and then the mom was like, it wasn't inappropriate until you singled out my underage child.
Well, and now that I do say 16 plus, he was 16.
Sure, but he looked young.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an old 16 and there's young 16.
Yeah, he was young. Yeah. He was like acne, little peach fuzz mustache 16.
Sure. The hormones hadn't quite kicked in.
No, voice did not drop.
And maybe they did after that night.
Probably.
When a powerful, large-chested, blonde bombshell looks at him and says, I was getting fucked in the ass when you were born.
Exactly. The only nutrition in her body is like 3 potatoes and
potatoes,
like vegan cheese. Terrible.
I remember you calling from Scotland and you were just like, I can't eat. There's nothing to eat here. And I was laughing, like prepping myself for that because it was just like, no, yeah, you can't eat. There's like no substitutions because Fringe, they can't handle it. And at one place, it was like you could have a meat, egg, and cheese or the veggie egg and cheese. And instead of just being egg and cheese, it was hash browns, egg and cheese.
Sure.
Because that's a veggie. Mm-hmm. And it's going, yeah, can't wait to fuel up. What?
Crazy.
Oh, it's nutty.
The gluten-free situation there is bleak. And thankfully, I don't have celiac. And I ended up eating a shitload of sourdough bread.
Oh, yeah. Lower gluten levels.
Yeah, it was just sourdough bread and eggs. That was like all that I ate.
Do you remember in 50/50 when I do the bread monologue?
Yes.
I did a play. It was a very drama play. It's not a comedy at all. It was so fun. But when we were writing one of the parts for my character, there's a part about being gluten-free in which she talks so fast and so long. But it was inspired by me and Greta trying to figure out the gluten levels at this restaurant by our house.
It was like the weird Brazilian place.
Yes, but that's where we found out about sourdough.
Yes.
Yeah.
God. Process.
You never know when you're going to get inspired for
You
art.
really don't.
Oh, you never know.
That's why art's so crazy and amazing.
But okay, so I have a question.
Yes.
So you did the thing, you got the invincibility, if you will, from it, and then you kind of come home.
Yeah.
And what do you do?
Well, wait, sorry. Did you know that I joined a gym in Edinburgh?
Can I tell you, why I know?
Why?
It's because I was talking about my lifestyle and like how I was like making sure I had outlets, physical outlets.
Yeah.
And Molly Gillis was there doing the doc another year. And she was like, yeah, Greta, you too. Yeah, Greta too. Greta joined a gym. And I go,
did.
yeah, that's my bitch. Of course she did.
Yeah. Month-long membership, honey.
How was it? Did you do classes?
Disgusting. No, I didn't do classes. It wasn't that disgusting. It was totally fine.
And you know what? They're also listening.
It was a very serviceable gym, very nice. No, I would just like get on the treadmill and like rage run.
Yeah.
And then I would like do weights and my trainer would like send me little workouts.
See, I had a realization in Fringe and my friends Demi and Catherine had them. Did you meet Demi or Catherine?
What do you mean? Yeah.
You've met them before.
What do you mean? Did I meet them like in life?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I know
so,
Demi.
Yeah. So the three of us were, like kikiing the whole time, kind of grounding each other. But we realized that you sometimes think you're doing all this work, you're doing all this stuff. Everyone's like, rest. And it's like, no, I was actually generating so much energy that we all needed to always find dancing, always find movement, because there was so much we needed to get rid of every day.
Did you feel that the vibes were good when you were there? Because my Fringe year, all of my other Fringe friends that are Fringe veterans, like decade plus long runs, like people that just go every single year. Because if you're in the UK and if you're a UK comic, it's way easier to go to the Fringe every year. They said that my year was weird.
Everyone said your year was weird.
Yeah.
And I think it was a perfect storm of like people had gone just the year before post COVID and had a lot of energy and then maybe burnt out, and then the writer's strike was happening in America, and it was like all these weird bad vibes in the world. And I've heard from everyone like texts at my venue being like, God, this is so much better than last year. Like in a way where the vibes were good. The vibes were genuinely good, but in a way where it felt like last year might have been this weird.
We also had freezing cold weather.
Oh, sure.
It was so cold.
I couldn't handle
it. It
that.
was not sunny at all. It was like we had maybe like 5 sunny days.
That affects everything.
I know. And it was so cold. I bought an iconic leather jacket at a charity shop.
Wait, which one?
My like brown leather one that's like oversized.
Sure. Yeah. I bought an iconic jacket.
Yeah. Because it's freezing fucking cold. Anyway, okay. Back to the question, which was I come home from Fringe.
Yeah.
And you say, now what?
Yeah.
Like, what did I do in that feeling? What did I do in that moment?
Well, I think we can twofold this question because we're fucking overachievers.
Yeah.
One, I think I know how you get clay on the mound and I know how you process and write and create. But I think the listeners would like to hear that in a more defined way. And maybe that ties into the fact when you get home and maybe you don't have the same drive to workshop something, where does that energy go? Does it go to daily writing? Does it go to, where does it go?
Well, When I got home, I was immediately thrust into like a work situation. So that was distracting.
Sure.
And good. And affirming in many ways. So that was one thing. So it was almost like I had to get over like a 1-2 punch situation when I got back to LA.
Yes.
But then I got back and I think I was so burnt out that I really gave myself a beat before performing again. And I gave myself a beat to focus on writing and the other projects that I had been tinkering on before Fringe that kind of were put on the back burner while I was at Fringe. So if there's one thing that I've learned about myself over the years, I will get very depressed if I am idle.
Yeah.
And I need something to be tinkering on at all times. But it's also important to learn how to rest, and it's important to learn how to give yourself a little break. So I think my creative process, like getting clay on the mound, things like that, I think it's a lot of me coming home, giving myself some rest, and then sort of feeling what I'm being pulled to and what I'm propelled to continue doing.
Yeah.
It's instinctual, I guess.
No, it is. I think I'm relearning, or at least allowing myself to not listen to other people when they say rest is important or what that looks like. Because I even thought at Fringe, like, the times I felt rested were not the times I just sat and chilled. I actually felt horrible. When my mind's idle, it does not feel good.
Right.
But maybe rest to me, I've discovered, like, on Instagram, I was doing my little outfits.
Yeah.
And, like, I wasn't doing anything with the play, anything necessarily creative that was monetary or to be consumed. I was putting on a look, feeling my oats, and putting on Instagram, and that felt very restful to be generative, to create.
Yeah.
And also have it be for nothing. And I think I've owned that a lot more recently, that, like, my rest could be writing another thing, doing another thing. But I used to feel really guilty for not, quote unquote, like, just rest. You're putting pressure on yourself if you don't take pauses. It's like, no, you and I's minds work the way they work for a reason.
Well, you can't subscribe to like these sweeping statements of how anyone is successful, especially when it comes to art and the creation of something that is literally so abstract until it's not.
Exactly.
And I think with creating, it's hard, right? Because I'm sitting here and we're having this conversation and I'm thinking to myself, whoever is listening to this is probably thinking to themselves, what has Greta ever created that, like, I know, you know?
Really?
Yeah, because I think creation and the act of creating is so behind closed doors a lot of the time. It's when people don't see how hard we work.
Of course not.
They don't see the build up to the product. You know what I mean?
But that's why I think this moment matters. You sitting here, I think, matters because so often we're told, like, they'll see it in the art or whatever. It's like, no, I think it's okay for you to be seen in that, for the green curtain to be pulled back and to go, look how hard she's working every day. Like you are a dog with a bone, and you've been since a decade, since I've known you, and you're writing more than anybody I know.
Yeah, I mean, look, something that I've come to terms with in my creative process is I am, and I feel like you are very similar in this, and I think that's like the competitive D1 athlete part of your brain.
And your bulldog brain.
Right, yeah. Where it's like, once I lock in, I am literally like a pit bull. Like, I'm not releasing the ball.
No.
You know, my jaw is locked.
No way.
But for me to find said ball in day-to-day life, it's not always there for me every day.
No, it's not.
So I've needed to be to the concept of like being gentle with yourself and like resting and all of that stuff. I need to be at peace with myself if I wake up and the ball's not there. You know what I mean? If a day or two or a week or whatever goes by and I'm not finding myself fucking at my computer, like being like, that doesn't mean that it is a failure of a week. It doesn't mean it is a failure of a creativity, honey. It doesn't.
It also, I think, requires a trust that the next spark is coming.
Yes.
And that's hard sometimes.
Totally. It's also hard, I think, we all fall into pits of comparison. It's hard to not.
The Fringe is set up to do that.
Right. And it's hard to not look and be like, wow, like that person is already writing like 3 other shows since like being here.
Specifically Fleabag, because I think she inspires me so much. I think she's so funny and a star and a genius. But then it was like, and then she did a Bond film, and then she did Villanelle, and then she did, and I was like, whoa, I'm not that generative. Fuck, is that what you're supposed to do when you catch the yarn of success? Fuck, I can't do, and it stressed me out. And it is, right, our egos comparing or whatever, but it does make you feel like, shoot, am I supposed to be doing it like that? Even if you're the most grounded, smart person being like, hey, I know we're all on our path. Like,
yeah, I just like, I have to think. I was on vacation in Portugal earlier this summer.
Baby girl.
Which is why I'm going to talk about surfing.
Okay, you're giving Zen. It's crazy. You're giving wisdom.
I'm giving Rick Rubin right now.
Whoa.
The act of creation. I do think is like sitting on a surfboard in the ocean and waves come and sometimes you catch a fucking sick wave and you ride it till the end and you hop off and you're like, wow, I did that. Other times, waves fucking wreck you. And other times, you're just sitting out there for days and days and days being like, is a wave ever going to come? But if you stay sitting out there, a wave eventually comes.
I'm going to actually continue your metaphor.
Please.
Because I think the knowledge that the wave will crash and end.
Of course.
Has a lot of us fighting the ride. And then we don't get to surf a wave.
Yeah, you don't get to enjoy it at all.
You don't enjoy it at all. And I think once you've gotten to the point of catching it, oh my God, catch it.
And you know, it's kind of amazing that we are the first people
to ever talk about process one.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
And to ever speak about it in such a way as, dare I say, to enjoy it.
Okay, it's like the Tao Te Ching tried, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and they, the Stoics tried to say what we're saying.
Correct.
And no one's ever
And somehow we are the only people to ever sort of synthesize.
Sorry, I'm getting a call. Marcus Aurelius found dead again. Oh my God.
Oh my God, wait.
Sorry, you're getting a call.
I'm getting a call.
Okay, yeah.
We won the Nobel Peace Prize.
God, what?
I don't know. It's like, yeah, the whole creating's weird. Doing what we do is like so, to me, it's like so crazy. And yet the thing that makes most sense to me of being in this existence.
Well, I even laugh because even like, yes, we are here talking about the process, or like the ego of me, like you saying, like someone's listening being like, what is she created, whatever. Stop me from ever speaking or even having a podcast or doing that because I was like, who am I?
Right. Well, there's imposter syndrome that like is a little devil that exists in everyone, big, small, anywhere in between. So
the devil, but then it's funny because like the second you identify imposter syndrome, it's whack-a-mole because then the next thing pops up of like you're too big for your britches or you're not self-aware. And it's like there's always something.
I know there's always something.
There's always something. There's always let's go back to the wave. Okay, so there's sharks in the water.
Yeah, there are always sharks in the water. There are always jellyfish that you can't see that will give you a little sting.
Oh my God, you're giving smartest person alive.
There are, sometimes you get knocked off the wave and you'll give yourself a double ear infection like I have right now from jumping in the fucking otion.
Okay, do you know what kills me is because I can physically visualize that moment of you being like, I'm gonna have fun.
Yep. I had like 3 glasses of rosé.
You're like, screw it.
A microdose of mushrooms. Yeah. I'm feeling my oats. No. I'm like, you know what I'm going to fucking do? And I'm not going to just jump off the side. I'm going to jump off the roof of this motherfucking catamaran. Yes, I did.
My little one.
And I plunged in and got a double ear infection.
Your tiny little body. Oh.
I really am like a little, I was like a kettlebell flying into that water. I literally was.
Oh my God. Because that's why like we laughed at like the gentle and the joy and the fun. And it's like my rest could just be enjoying myself more and having fun doing all this instead of being like should. whatever. But it's so fun to think of those moments when we are white knuckling. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna have fun.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna really grasp this for what it is. And then I become like a pusher. It's like 11 a.m. and I'm like, who else wants wine? Everyone's like, can you calm down?
I can't hear. My ears are infected from the fun I had yesterday.
Yes. Wait, you were saying fun. What were you saying? Ears are infected, grasping. I wanted to say something.
Okay, ears infection, trying to have fun. By the way, sharks in the water,
No.
imposter syndrome.
Oh. I was talking to our friend this morning who is an astrologer.
Which one?
David Odyssey.
Oh, love David so much.
And I was talking with David this morning about my astrology.
Wait, you had a session?
I did.
Everyone, get a session with David Odyssey.
Yes.
David is so talented and also just so cool and wonderful and kind. Okay. David gave a reading for the play before I wrote it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I love that.
I got an astrological chart for it. But keep going.
So I was saying to him, I was like, I only want to talk about my career. I only care about my career, all of this stuff. And I was like, and I am really trying to, I am going on 2 trips in October, and I'm really trying to focus on really just kind of locking in and enjoying that and being present with my friends and my husband.
And I think that'll bring me joy in my career.
Yeah, and I'm thinking it's one of my best friend's 40th birthday is going on that trip. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go on. And he's just like, it sounds like you're really like enjoying it. I'm like, yeah.
It's also like my illness is like, and if I enjoy that, I'll be rest, and then obviously career stuff will come through. I'll be rest, and then career stuff will come through when you're rest.
I'll be rest.
It's always for rest.
But
I'll be rest.
The thing is, and I hate to say this, and this I have in my old ripe age of 23, I know to be true.
You were underage when you did Fringe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I had to get a guardian to sign a consent form.
Well, at least your 16-year-old boyfriend showed up.
Yeah, thank God for him. Is this okay? When I am, and I'm just speaking for me personally, and if you're a creative person struggling, this is helpful to me. Much easier said than done, but when I do it, I feel better. So this is what I have learned to be true in my decade now of pursuing my dreams. Mm-hmm. When you are at peace with as much as you can be, when you are at peace with yourself as much as you can be, when you let yourself kind of lay in the river, when you're not at a constant war.
Yeah.
Because it's an internal war. I'm talking about the internal war with oneself. That actually is when good shit happens. And
it's when you see the wave.
Yeah, and I'm also the first person to ever say that. I'm also the first person to ever comment on the fact that when you release, things do come.
You know what? Here's what I'll say. You're not, I'm sorry, this is so inappropriate to tell you, but you are actually not the first person to say that.
I'm not?
No, we can talk later. It's fine. But you are the first person that someone might hear.
There you go.
And I think that matters. So the times where, like, who's your guru? It doesn't matter. They're all saying the same shit. Good. That's why we have a million different religions. They're all saying the same thing, but it's resonating differently. And people are at a place where they can hear it from certain people and not from others.
Yeah. And look, some days I'm so spiritual and I'm believing in stuff, and other days I'm a fucking nihilist. But you know what? It's all about that balance, honey.
Baby, it's all about that balance. Yeah. And I do think it's all about trust in the unknown. And that's really hard.
Trust is my word of 2024.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I just passed a hair salon on the way here that's called Trust! !
And you know what? My sister used to get her haircut there.
No, she didn't. Yeah. Why would she do that? Did she walk past?
No, because a friend of ours went.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Love that friend. Love that friend. Okay, so we have a final segment.
Yes.
And it's called Thank You for Holding My Poems.
Okay.
I like this segment because it is, I think these stories, our shows, I think a lot of art is about witnessing. Mm-hmm. And my favorite poet, Anna Akhmatova, when she was writing her poetry and art under the Great Terror, it was illegal to publish. So she would have her best friends memorize edits, and they held them for 30 years before it was legal to publish. And I think that witnessing, that vulnerability of like coming not quite right to someone and holding a moment is really important in this process. And I like to think of moments that are really small. And I know you are part of your community wherever you are. And I think those moments to me tend to look like a barista who laughed at your joke on a day where you thought you were shit. Mm-hmm. So do you have a moment that you'd like to share with us that we could hold for you that really touched you as an artist or inspired you or felt important to be witnessed and held?
What a beautiful question. Meaning like something that I've just generally experienced.
I think I genuinely mean this. It's very chocolat, what do you see in the plate? What came to your mind?
Well, is it something that I've lived?
Can be.
If we're kind of saying that in the space of performance and art and work and creation, actually something that I hold very dear to my heart is when we shared a show at the Duplex.
Oh.
And we did a show there, and I remember for the first time I really felt like I was on a different frequency and like I was really good at something.
Oh.
And I think that there was a moment where there was some guy who I think is Bob's friend.
Probably.
Who was sitting in the front row and he was wearing like Yeezy sneakers.
This is 2017, so it
Yeah, and like I was like making fun of him or something like that. And I remember I felt special for making fun of someone.
You're not wrong. Well,
I felt like that was such a special moment. I feel like you and I have shared so many special moments in developing as friends, as artists, as people. And I think I look at both of us now and where we are now, and we're both sort of entering into these new, more, to repeat a word that I used earlier in this pod, crystallized versions of, I think, the people that we always knew we could be, thought we could be, hoped we could be. And I think that I look forward to, in another 10 years, looking back on this, being like, wow, who knew what another 10 years could give us.
So much. I love you so much.
I'm gonna cry.
No, I'm gonna cry too. I'm like, do we have time for me to talk about every way you're perfect? No, but you are talk about being witnessed as artists. Like you are my 20s, you know, like you and I had the stupidest adventures. We would, try the dumbest things, like, romantically, interpersonally, shows, I remember like one time, like Lady Lovin was doing Caroline's and Lo was like, we don't have an SD card. And I remember being like, I gotta go get one. Yeah. And like ripping through Times Square. And then I remember like, there have been so many times where I've been like down and fucking out emotionally. And you come in with both the perfect love and also, hey, I love you. Hey, you're perfect. And guess what? That's what I need. Oh. And I love you so much. And I'm so grateful. I'm grateful. You are my poem.
Oh, Mo.
I didn't know we were going to cry. I love you.
Love you.
All right. Well, can you tell people where to find you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at GertieBird. If you're in Los Angeles, you can come to me and our dear girl Blair Saki's show at the Largo on September 23rd.
Talk about moving from Genghis Cohen.
Oh yeah, me and Blair, another one that go way back.
Blair is a star and one of the funniest people you'll know. And Greta and Blair have been hosting a show for years, and it's incredible every time. It's so good.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
thanks, Mo.
I love you.
I love you.
And we end with oh my God, you're so pretty.
Oh my God, you're so pretty.
Okay. Worse Than You with Mo Fry Pasick is hosted by me, Mo Fry Pasick. You can learn more about this week's guest and the Worse Than You team by checking out the show and episode copy. It's on your phone, the thing you are touching so often. Sanitize it, my God. For more on our journey to the fringe, head to worsethanYouPlay.com and make sure to follow us on Instagram. I know you're scrolling constantly, and, well, it's the least you could do. Worse Than You with Mo Fry Pasick is produced by Disco Nap and Kinahora Productions. Oh my God, you're so pretty.